Hello there. What an amazing day today. Uh, it's not even 9 o'clock yet, and was presented with some choices from the universe that was quite beautiful. And there's a post from a woman named Femke Zoka. I don't know if I pronounced that right. Below this, that talks about this divine choice, and it resonated with me completely. So anybody that's been following me for a while I've said I've been going through some dating experiences. There's a secondary experience where I did a healing exchange with a woman. I talked about it in some of my previous posts. And some of the healing exchange work that I do with people involves sacred sexuality work. I gave a yoni massage to a woman that was badly in need of some healing work, and it was based on an exchange. Basically, she didn't have the money to be able to pay for a session, and she wanted to exchange. And at the same time, she drew me in as if she wanted to date me and other things, which is usually a no-no, but I was feeling weak, and it had been a while since I'd been in a relationship and other things. So it created this kind of tangled mess. And I learned some stuff out of that as well. Typically, I wouldn't get romantically involved with somebody that I did healing work with. But it's been a long dry spell, and I thought that's what was needed. But the actual pull to what was needed was actually this lesson that I'm going to discuss. So I did the healing work with her, and it was massively opening, and she had a lot of pleasure from the experience. And at the end of the experience, we had a talk, and she agreed to exchange and give something similar back to me, and she wanted to learn the processes of the Temple of Isis and do this work and all these things. So basically, the coming weeks came, and she agreed to a time, and then she kept pushing out the time. And I had a lot of discomfort with that. I gave her some time the first time, and then she pushed out again, and I basically held her accountable, and I said, we gotta have this, and this feels very out of alignment, etc., until finally she got around to making some time. And it was on the last minute notice, and things changed and other things, so it was kind of uncomfortable. So we came to the day of the session, and basically she changed it from what we agreed to just a simple massage, because she is a massage therapist and that's what she does. And she wasn't explaining any discomforts or other things that were going on inside of her system, but I was left to interpret this by her indirectness, we'll call it that. So we did the massage, and as I said, she wanted to learn about the process. I explained the process and how that might be for a man, etc. And she's allowed to completely or whatever, but she didn't align to what her first agreements were and other things. She obviously had some trigger, but she wasn't talking about it, so it wasn't discussed. And I was left feeling very unbalanced at the end. And here's even more crazy. At the end of the experience, I discovered that she was wearing a t-shirt with the Freemason logo on it. It's kind of like a protractor with a G for the guild or whatever on it. And she thought it was quite hilarious that energy was brought into my healing session. And so I went home and I processed for a while, and then I sent her a text just saying, okay, this isn't what we agreed, and I'm really disappointed and not feeling complete. And she actually asked me, do you feel complete at the end? And I did not feel complete, but to please her, which is my mistake, I said, I feel complete, which I didn't. And then I went home and I hated myself for doing that. So I responded, and she said I was being overly dramatic, and every time that we get together, I'm sharing this deep, or depth, I guess is a better way to say it, this depth of what my feelings were, which she was not comfortable with. But that's price of admission as far as I'm concerned. If I'm going into a situation with a person, it doesn't feel right or feels off, I have to be direct, I have to communicate. Quite the opposite of what she was doing. So I communicated with her deeply what the lack of integrity and what she agreed to and what she didn't agree to, or what she didn't do in this text. And then she's like calling me a drama queen or whatever you want. There was no emotion in it. There was just discussion of what I felt and how it made me feel, and what I understood her to agree to, etc. And she basically came back and says, I need time to integrate this, which was fine. But she spent 2 weeks, and I hadn't heard a word from her. She blocked me, or she unfriended me on Facebook with a force, and basically said, didn't respond to anything that was placed in the text or whatever, but basically said, if you want to be with me, expect chaos. Which was like, okay. And she truly believes that, because her life is chaos, and her lack of accountability, her lack of all these other things, it's clear that there's something going on with her. There's some darkness, some lineage trauma, whatever that's going on for her, but there's something deeper, kind of controlling and manipulating the people she draws into her life to feed that entity, and she's not even consciously aware of it, which is fine. No judgment or whatever, but she basically, after 2 weeks of sitting with everything, basically did not respond to one thing that I said or one concern that I had, and basically said that the price of admission with her is chaos. And then she made a statement that made it all make sense. She says, well, if you agree to that, we could have a lot of fun. And it was just hilarious to me, because it was like making a deal with the devil. To have sex, to have pleasure, to do more of that thing that I shared in loving respect with her, with no expectations, but an agreement of balance that she couldn't return. She basically wanted me to agree to that in perpetuity with her, under her chaos and her lack of accountability and her lack of follow through, etc., which would have destroyed me. That simple. So I see it as, and I'm not calling her the devil. I'm just saying that what was working through her was darkness and the old shadow experiences. But basically it was like, as long as you agree to chaos, I promise to meet your needs, but there's no evidence that you could meet my needs anyways, because you had a chance to do it without any like staying in balance, without any other thing, and she couldn't do it, which spoke thousands of words to me, which I thought was quite beautiful to see. But I was presented with this choice to continue on my old path of not being worthy, just accepting whatever love or respect or pleasure I could get from anyone, but on her terms that weren't self-loving to me. Or I could choose to walk away and say, this isn't working for me, and I can't continue this, which is exactly what I did. It was absolutely crystal clear to me. I cannot live in that dark shadow of external entities basically forcing me and deciding when I can be in loving congregation with another person, etc. It was so beautiful and so surreal at the same time. My biggest wound is from my marriage and my sexless marriage that I had, and I could just see I had this choice. It's like, okay, accept a partnership and sexuality at this level where the other person can be completely chaotic and not in alignment and not predictable. Not that I need predictable, but I need predictable right now because I'm plotting a course back to self-choice and me. But to make the choice to have pleasure, to have sex with somebody, to enjoy a relationship with somebody that could not be self-accountable or self-responsible was so crystal clear to me not something that I wanted. And maybe you'll have this choice at some point in your life where you're entering relationship. Maybe I'll admit I'm in lack of sexuality and being touched and other things in my life. And that's something that I so badly want, but not on those terms, which is such a huge monumental shift from the broken little child that would have just taken anything from anyone on any terms in my past. So I am so proud of myself, so beautiful that I could stand up for what I want, and I'm on the precipice. I'm starting to see old relationships in 3D fall away and new loving connections show up in my life. And those are the things I'm willing to wait for, to stand for, to kind of in a way lose my virginity to, if you call it that, waiting for the one or waiting for someone that's special, and then giving yourself fully and completely heart wide open into relationship with that person, that being, that other person that wants the same thing. And I'm not saying it's wrapped up with this church thing and gotta be married and the commitment is way different. Soul commitment, connection at a level where you're completely and totally devoted to that other person, not just for fun and let's have some fun together or whatever, but for your soul and a soul choice that will make you trust yourself and want to only welcome in that's which equal and opposite to you, not something that's just let's get off together and no limits or no respect or whatever afterwards. Would not have filled me. It would have broken me. It would have smashed me, because we're all looking for divine connection, for a lover, a partner, someone that can be our equal and opposite, or whatever you want to call it, that you can lean into and do the work with and explore and see a future with, or somebody that'll stand behind you and back you up and give you the respect you need. But I didn't see a drop of that in what was going on here, which is so surreal, but it showed me a facet of unawareness, a facet of darkness that works through other people's wounds, and made an offer to me that used every one of my wounds to try and draw me into a contract with far lesser than I'm worthy of. So you may be presented this choice in the near future. It can be anything from like an ex coming back, or a business opportunity that doesn't feel right in your heart, but you can make a lot of money doing it, or you can go into relationship with someone and they're going to offer you sex and fun and pleasure with no strings, but your heart needs the strings. And I'm not talking about bondage strings or hooking into other people. You want that connection, that two-way connection, not attached, but of openness, of vulnerability, of truth, that will set you free and finally realize that that's your divine birthright, and you really don't have to struggle for it or ask for it. You just have to get all this shit and this detritus, the stuff blocking you from accepting it from your wounds, from your pain, from your suffering, from your struggle, and all this kind of stuff, and finally say, hey, no, I'm not going to struggle that way anymore, and I'm not in lack. I'm completely happy with who I am, and I love myself completely, and I'm not going to let that in. And it felt so good. And I'm sure she'll scream and moan and complain and other stuff, but I don't want that. There's something inside that or that person and their wounds that's doing it from their broken place. And I don't want to be in that broken place with them. Even though there could be pleasure, there could be fun, there will be more wounds, more pain, more suffering, etc. after the fact. So I welcome better, and I welcome balance. And I freely give with others, not in the expectation, but when there's an agreement. I don't freely give unless there's a willingness for balance. And the universe will sometimes balance me. The person will balance. Sometimes I let people into my life. Sometimes I let people into my life that use me. There's another situation that happened last night where this woman came back into my life and she just uses me for information and my spiritual guidance and all this kind of stuff. No thank yous, no repayment or no acts of service back. Just, oh, by the way, I've got this thing going on. I've got this headache. I've got this blah, 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 blah. And it's just a little girl that didn't want to be in balance and took until I chose myself. And I reflected for her and I said, you want me to answer these questions for you, but how are we in balance? You didn't even say thank you. You didn't even return the favor or use your gifts to help me in some way or whatever. Where if we're in balance, it would have been great. And then she couldn't even understand that when I asked for balance, I don't understand, it's making my head hurt. And I said, straight out, I feel used. She hasn't said a word since. Which is almost hilarious to me, because a person that's fully in balance in themselves will realize that there's an imbalance and stop using the imbalance to feed themselves, will correct the imbalance in themselves, and things will move forward. So I'm getting more and more affirmation that my choices and speaking openly about me and loving me is rewarding me. It feels like a whole bunch of tests, but the universe knows clearly that I am in alignment with my highest good, with good relationship, with people that are in balance with me, and I will not be used, I will not be taken advantage of in any way, shape, or form, and that's my choice. I can have people show up that will test me on that, and they just really don't deserve my gifts or my time or whatever if there's no balance, and they don't respect them. Because there's a ton of people that'll take out there, and there's only a few people that will give openly. And the period of taking from people that give openly and not returning the balance is over. That's how looshing, that's how negative energy works. They just keep coming, and if you give freely to them, they'll accept, and they don't give a fuck, and they're just using it for themselves to feel better and to survive and to feed off of. Doors closed. Boom. To those people. I still offer openly to people that are ready, but the darkness, the loosh, the whatever energies will stop. It's kind of hilarious. Yesterday too, I had 4 different texts from people I don't even know. One was a young woman that sent her picture and all the, hi, how are you? How's your day? There's AI, there's looshing energies all over the place that want to have an interaction with a light person. Maybe it's happening to you too. I just report them as junk and don't give them any energy. Because that stage is over. And if we stop feeding them, we stop being upset, we stop being frustrated by their acts of violence. Another example is, I live in an apartment building, and a letter came out to the whole building basically saying there was an incident where a noisy neighbor had a note left on their door saying, be a good neighbor. And because the people were uncomfortable speaking to them directly. And it was, there's a very large management company called Avison Young. And I'm not sure they're in the light at all. But it came from Avison Young saying that this was a hate crime and that it was not permitted and it was against the lease requirements. None of this shit is in the lease. The lease is not that big, and it doesn't say you can't communicate with your neighbor and who gets to choose that. But a noisy neighbor, they basically said putting a note on their door, and maybe there was some other stuff said, but it wasn't stated in it, but you're not allowed to put a note on their door, say, be a good neighbor and cut the noise down, that was a hate crime. So it showed to me that maybe there was an ethnicity in the neighbor, and maybe some words were said or whatever that would make it a hate crime, but basically making it not okay to talk to your neighbor about them being noisy. And there's a lot of immigrants that are being brought into our country now that have no care or respect for people's rights or Canadian rights or whatever, and they want to make it their shitty country, and they're trying to come to our country, and it's happening in the US. I see it all over the place, in Europe, etc., where people that have no respect for what made our country good are coming in and I can see it across the quad for me here. There's only up to 2-bedroom apartments in this place, and there's 6 kids, 2 of them like big, that are part of this family. How can you allow 6 kids and 2 adults into one 2-bedroom apartment? Yeah, maybe that's what they think is required, but it's not okay as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, I'm going to close it at this. It's been quite the exploration today. Are you choosing you? Are you going to get faced with this choice? What are you going to choose? Try it. You're going to be surprised. I love you. Have a good day. I got to get on a call.